Good evening. So let me make sure I understand the latest development out of Washington. A group of SNAP recipients, people receiving federal food assistance funded by taxpayers, are now suing the United States government because they can't buy soda and candy with those benefits? Yes, soda and candy with taxpayer money. Apparently, the constitutional right to a Snickers bar is now being litigated in federal court. Welcome to America in 2026. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about what SNAP actually is. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, helps more than 40 million Americans purchase groceries each year. And the cost? Roughly about $100 billion annually. That makes SNAP one of the largest federal assistance programs in the country. Originally created in 1964, the program had a simple goal to help struggling families buy food while supporting American agriculture. Seems reasonable, but over time, a question began to emerge. What exactly should taxpayers be paying for? Fresh vegetables? Absolutely. Milk? Of course. Chicken, rice, eggs, bread? No argument there. But soda? Candy? Energy drinks? That's where things start to get interesting. For years, public health researchers have been sounding the alarms about sugary consumption. High intake of sugary beverages and processed sweets have been linked to long-lasting chronic health conditions. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, and sugary drinks are particularly problematic. They derive massive amount of sugar and calories, while virtually no nutrition value. In fact, many nutrition researchers consider sugary beverages one of the single biggest drivers of rising obesity rate in the United States. And here's where the taxpayer part of this story starts to get really fascinating. Because when those long-term health problems develop, guess who often ends up paying the bill? Taxpayers. Let's talk about numbers. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, obesity alone costs the U.S. healthcare system roughly $173 billion per year. Type 2 diabetes, that adds another $327 billion annually in medical costs and lost productivity. And many of those expenses flow directly from government programs like Medicare and Medicaid, which are funded by, you guessed it, the same taxpayers funding SNAP. So the debate unfolding right now is actually pretty simple. Should taxpayer funds nutrition programs pay for products that may increase likelihood of taxpayer-funded healthcare costs later? Or, to put it in a little bit more bluntly, should the government subsidize soda today and insulin tomorrow? Historically, SNAP allowed recipients to purchase almost anything in the grocery store, except alcohol, tobacco, and hot prepared foods. That meant everything from apples and carrots to frozen pizza, candy bars, and energy drinks. But recently, several states, including Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, Utah, and West Virginia, began experimenting with restrictions on certain products, specifically sugary drinks and candy, and certain ultra-processed snack foods. The goal? Encourage healthier purchase habits and reduce long-term health costs. Seems straightforward, but not everybody agrees. Which brings us back to the lawsuit. Several SNAP recipients have now filed a legal challenge to claim the restrictions are unfairly limiting their purchase choices. One argument raised in the case is that the restrictions could limit dietary options for certain households, and that's a real concern worth discussing. But let's also acknowledge the elephant in the grocery aisle. Taxpayers are funding the program. SNAP purchases represent tens of billions of dollars in grocery sales every year. That makes the program one of the largest drivers of food spending in the United States. And yes, some of the money is spent on soda and sugary drinks. Now, no one is suggesting an American shouldn't be allowed to buy those products. You can walk into a grocery store in America and buy whatever you want. The real question is much narrower. Should those purchases be funded by public assistance dollars? And that's why this debate has become so politically explosive, because it sits right at the intersection of several national issues: poverty, public health, government spending, personal freedom, and responsibility of taxpayers. At the end of the day, SNAP exists for an important reason. Millions of Americans rely on it. Food insecurity is real, but when programs cost $100 billion a year and long-term health consequences of certain products cost hundreds of billions of dollars more, it's fair for taxpayers to ask a question, maybe even a sarcastic one. If government is paying for groceries, should it really be paying for sugary rush too? For Engelbrook Independent News, I'm Haley Ficuciello, and that's been tonight's commentary.